afterwards. Okay, well, I'm going to mute you all now, and then, okay, we'll start. Okay, thank you very much for being here today. I thought it would be quite useful. We've had lots of information about the problems with COVID and what it's doing to your firms and, more importantly, your clients in many ways. But I thought now, being an eternal optimist, it might be quite a good time to look ahead to the future and what that future holds. To do that, as I say, I've asked Martin Bissett along, and I've asked a couple of our members to talk on their plans. But I thought I'd just start with a quick recap of where we are at the moment. And hopefully you're aware we have access to Global Data's regular updates on our website. And if you haven't accessed those, they are, I find, very useful for finding out where we actually stand at the moment. But I just want to give you a quick rundown on the latest summary of the report that came out on the 4th, on Monday. I'm just going to share my screen to do that. So hopefully you can now see the screen in front of you. The last update was the 29th of April. So since then there have been 3,112,000 new cases with a confirmation of 3 million. US records, highest number of infections. Currently no cure or preventative options available. The clinical trial, there are lots of them going on. That's sort of the background, but yeah, there is a general consensus, and again, it's not rocket science, that in the short term, unemployment rates will rise in all major economies. The GDP is forecast to fall. There is concern about this second wave of COVID-19 infections. And whilst at the very bottom there, the Global Data poll shows increasing concern, but, and this is the sort of ray of optimism, the ray of sunlight, the views on business growth prospects are that they are improving. Now, it's worth saying that the timescale on this is out to 3 years. So, yeah, there is optimism there, but we've got to get there first. And that's why at this stage, I would like to ask Martin to give us his views on where to go in the future.
Thank you, Tim, and good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Delighted to be here to be able to share my observations and insights with you. They come from 4 territories in the main. They come from the UK, North America, Central Europe, and Australia. Most of the observations. And so I break this down to 3 parts for you, if I may. The first part was what was the response in the accounting profession when lockdown was announced pretty much throughout Europe and North America. The first response that we saw just about every firm do was to get their own house in order, as you would expect them to do. Cash flows, staffing positions were reviewed, and they positioned themselves ready for the worst. After that, the second stage was a firefighting, where a lot of clients were panicking and they were calling in and saying, what do we do? What support? How do we, and the firms that were most affected by this, we found, were the ones with the heaviest retail-based portfolios of clients. And firms quickly worked out that the more proactively they disseminated information to their clients, the less firefighting they were having to do by taking incoming calls. So that was stage 2, and this was taking about a week each to achieve. Stage 3 then was the remote working side, to get everybody on the correct IT protocols and the correct securities to be able to work remotely. And interesting, what we saw from that was we saw 8 to 10 hour office days translate into 4.5 hour working from home days, where productivity and quality of work was at least the equal of what was done in the office. And it showed the impact of just popping into the office for a chat with colleagues and the impact that had on productivity. So that was stage 3, the remote working. And then the stage 4, unfortunately, we didn't see the majority of firms do. It was the minority. But in stage 4, what happened was that firms then went out proactively and they prioritized their client base, and they went to grade A first, or most vulnerable first, maybe grade A therefore second, everybody else third, and said, hey, how can we help? And from my personal point of view, everyone, what fascinated me is that I have been in the accounting profession now for 22 years, and I have researched people who have, and worked with people who've been in for 40 and 50 years. And what fascinated me is that all of this content, all of these years, in all of these conferences about advisory and proactivity, took a global pandemic to come to pass. And now it was actually happening. Clients were asking for it, firms were delivering it. And that's the trend I hope does not change post-COVID. So where are we going now? With those 4 stages in place, client conversations, in my experience, from my feedback and research, have never been higher at any point. The sample has been taken. And now firms are ready for recovery. Grant Thornton, I think it was Grant Thornton yesterday, announced that they felt it would take their organization about 2 years to get back to pre-COVID levels of both turnover and profitability. But a lot of firms of a sort of a BKR member size are now quite optimistic. The panic is over, calm has ensued. They have found that there is appetite within the client base for a range of support that goes beyond compliance services. And they can now see a future with being able to support clients on many different fronts rather than just the basic recurring work. That has fed the optimism. The second thing that has fed optimism is that I personally know, and I'm sure there are many more, I personally know of 2 firms here in the UK who have gone to the wall, have gone bankrupt, have closed shop in this COVID period because they were so heavily compliance based. And because they weren't being paid on direct debits, but being paid at year end, and they couldn't bring the work forward enough to satisfy cash flows. And the partners were treating the firms as cash machines, so there was no reserves within the practice, and that caused cash to dry up very quickly and 2 firms to go to the wall. I'm sure there are many more cases of that. Other firms have shuttered, have thrown up the shutters, and have not communicated with their clients. And so another reason for firm optimism is that they are getting inquiries from businesses who are saying, our accountant didn't talk to us. Our accountant didn't reach out to us. So can you? And so I see a lot of firm optimism on that basis. Yesterday, I held 2 separate consulting sessions with 2 7-figure firms about how do we strategize for the recovery now. And I am sure you guys are well on with that, but just in case you're not, I would strongly encourage you now to turn your attention to strategizing for the recovery, because what is absolutely certain and without doubt is that opportunity is going to be greatly on the increase. And yes, we may have lost revenue. Yes, we may have lost clients. But generally speaking, rather than individually speaking, opportunity is huge at this moment in time, because business owners have seen who helped and who didn't help when the crisis finally hit. So Tim, I would suggest in the first instance, that's my overview of everything that's happened since about March 23rd.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Is anybody questions for Martin at this stage? Anything anyone wants to comment on?
Guys, I don't know how familiar everyone is with Zoom, but we do have the group chat as well. So if there's a question you want to ask me personally, you'll see my name on our list today. And if not, just the to everyone, so that everyone will see it, and then we'll be able to respond to that. But that's, like I said, that's I can go on for quite some time as to what the impacts are and what we should be doing and in what order, but I just want to give you an overview first of all. Nilesh? Do I can't bring Nilesh off mute?
Yeah, no,
I've
unmuted. I've unmuted myself. Always better to take control. I'm just curious from what you've just said. Are you seeing from the businesses that you're advising a greater move towards our fellow professionals looking at their client base to see who can actually afford to pay going forward? Because I would have thought that many firms will feel that they have to work and they might rush into doing the work, but you don't know whether 2-3 months down the line, those clients are going to survive what will inevitably will be an economic downturn. I appreciate what you're saying, plan ahead, which we are, I'm sure most other firms are as well. But surely you need to look at your client base and see which sectors they're in to decide where you first do the work.
What interested me, Nilesh, is that those who are paid by direct debit have not seen a downturn at all in direct debits bouncing or failing to be collected. The cash flow issues for the firms have come where people don't pay on an automated way, and they've had to go and chase to be paid. It's interesting also to me that the majority of firms have charged for furloughing staff on different rates, some on an hourly rate, some on a flat rate, and so on. So when looking at the client base, most of the firms that I talk to at managing partner level are taking a fairly holistic view. Retail is obviously the concern. Retail is the primary concern. But for many of the firms that I work with and I advise, they themselves advise a degree of financial management and financial literacy to their clients. So a number of their clients have had cash reserves that have seen them through this period. They've also been able to go for either the C-bills or the bounce back, or the grant money that's been available from the UK government, for example, and the US equivalents of that. And therefore, the conversations with clients is not really where do we do the work first so much in terms of a work in progress scheduling point of view, but rather which clients are going to use us to a greater extent. And because the vast majority of the clients that I work with collect income by direct debit and everybody's paying, then, and by everybody I mean well over 80% of the client base are paying as standard, as normal, nothing has changed, then the work continues largely uninterrupted on that basis, and no real shifting of priorities from a work in progress point of view have arisen, because it is, as far as possible, business as usual, the exceptions, of course, being the odd numbers of clients who have asked for payment holidays and deferrals, and those in the retail sector where there is widespread disruption. But within normal B2B, I haven't seen in the firms that I interact with and hear from huge changes to work schedules whatsoever.
Martin, can I ask one on the role of the trusted advisor?
Yes.
With lots of clients out there wondering where to go. I mean, this is the role that the accounting profession has seen develop over the years. Do you think this is going to increase?
Yes. I'm just wondering who's going to drive the increase, Tim, because I spoke to Philip King, the government's Small Business Commissioner, yesterday, and he has long argued for the accounting profession to take that role. But it hasn't been proactively taken to market. And so what we saw in the crisis when the lockdown first occurred is we saw for accountancy firms' clients asking the question that they shouldn't have asked, which is, do you help with that? Meaning, can you help me with budgets? Can you help me with cash flows? Can you help me with forecasts? Can you help me with management information? Can you help me with my personal financial portfolio? Can you help me with supplier arrangements and so forth? And none of those questions should really have been asked. because it should have been known by the clients, because the practices should have been educating them for several years now, that that is well within their skill set to support on. But the reality is that that's not what has happened, despite all talks and marketing to the contrary. And therefore, it is only because the client has asked the accounting firm that they have learned just how critical accountants can be in the success of their ventures and enterprises. So do I see the role of the trusted advisor increasing now post-COVID? Absolutely. And I see that in all territories. I don't see that confined to UK and North America, for example. I just came off a call prior to this one from Australia, same thing happening there. I spoke a couple of days ago to a Belgian firm and a Dutch firm, and same things happening there. So I also spoke to a Nordic firm, same thing happening there. So I think we'll definitely see an increase in the role of trusted advisor. My question is whether that's going to take the clients to ask for the help still, or whether firms will now take on that proactive mantle and responsibility to proactively educate both their clients and their prospective clients on this front. Tim, I have something with me at the moment. May I have permission to share screen, please? Guys, there's something here that I just wanted to put out here just for your attention, really, not to really do anything about it or make any strong points about it. But one of the clients that I advise has taken 3 years to follow a piece of advice that I've asked them to follow. But they're there now, and they've chosen this COVID period as the ideal time to do this. So what they've done is they've launched their new website. Now, their new website isn't technologically incredible or visually spectacular. It isn't groundbreaking in either of those categories at all. But it's the message that they are now presenting to both their existing clients and their potential clients that has me fascinated. So I will share my screen here, and hopefully we will see this quite easily. Hopefully you can all see that at this time. Just give me a quick nod if you can. Thank you very much. So as you can see, the layout of the actual website is nothing spectacular, but just take a look down here. In my 22 years, this is the first time that I have seen what is traditionally a client testimonial, which is, you know, a sort of a given, turned into a focus on individuals and the outcomes created in their lives as a result of PML support. If you look at David dead center, they says, here's how we gave David his Sundays back, because he was working Sundays endlessly. Here's how we helped Paul gain control, Cheryl get her dream home, Ray improved systems, Gareth improved sales, Natalie improved profits. Now, this isn't a groundbreaking change. It's simply the focus. The home page of an accounting firm's website is on the individual outcomes. It doesn't talk about accountancy. It doesn't talk about here's all the huge list of services that you do not understand. So I think this is a clever move in the lockdown period, because when you look at other elements of it, and no, I did not build this website, by the way, before you asked, no, I did not get involved in it. I look at why our clients choose us. They now just talk about a process. We listen to you, number one. We develop the solution for you, number two. We're still not talking about accountancy here. We outline the way forward, number three. And number four, we get on with it. And then a simple invite for them to do the same for them, to transform their business. When we look at how we help, which would be a services tab on most people's websites, we see here that they've done three things. They now claim to deliver or offer three things: business growth, business support, and business basics. And it's only in that third one of business basics do we see the compliance start showing up. They are trying to portray, we support you, we help you grow. That's what we're in business to do. Whatever your personal and professional aspirations are, that's what we're in business to do. And that message is going out to 7- and 8-figure manufacturing companies and IT service companies and so on. So these are not small clients that they're dealing with. And what interests me now is whether we will see an increase in that form of messaging going forward. and whether we'll now see people stop talking about we do tax, we do audit, and instead talking about the human impact of the support given by the technical professionals to the business owners. And if that does happen, then a very long-winded answer to your question, Tim, but if that does happen, then we will finally see the shift, the transformational shift that people like me have been predicting for years and years and years and years, or even banging the drum to encourage to happen for years and years and years. It will finally happen. The unknown for me is whether the practices will take the lead, or whether the clients will still need to have to ask for it. That I'm unsure of at this time.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, can we move on and now hear from some of you? Kate, could you just give us a quick couple of minutes on your thoughts about how Ormsby and Rhodes are going to take it forward?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I suppose from our point of view, our government initiated a 5-step plan towards recovery last week. So based on our expectations, it looks like businesses that can work remotely will continue to do so until at least the end of August. So that means for us having the staff working remotely for the next few months. So far, it has worked well for us working remotely. We're quite well set up in general for it. Obviously, administration staff and things like that has been difficult. But so far, because a lot of what we do is paperless, it has worked quite well. I think the timing of the whole COVID pandemic has been, I don't want to say positive, but I suppose it's come when, from the audit department point of view, we are at our busiest. So we found that any audits that were scheduled to happen over kind of March, April, May, June are still happening, which is obviously a positive, and luckily they're with clients that we know will be in a position to pay. I really think, looking at it, that we'll probably see the main impact maybe this time next year. I think especially on the back office side, it's going to be quite difficult to justify fees for a lot of clients that have maybe had to shut up shop. You know, from a firm point of view, we're quite lucky. We're not very overly reliant on one specific industry. So while we have a few kind of retail restaurant businesses, we also have a lot of clients that are doing quite well, that are maybe in the health service, supplies, things like that. So overall, luckily, it hasn't had a massive negative impact from kind of, I mean, everyone's still busy, which is good. Where I see it also probably being an issue is in terms of our more junior staff. I do think we're going to see a knock-on effect of them missing out on a lot of training, and a lot of, you know, it's difficult to keep the more junior staff busy because they're not really up to scratch to be able to work independently. So I think we could be in a situation where there is a big negative impact on that when we all do finally kind of get back to the office. When we get back to the office, your guess is as good as mine. I'd like to think we'll be back in some shape or form by September, October. We've recruited for graduates now, and we have our graduates confirmed to come in October. So we can hope that we'll be in some shape, but obviously with social distancing rules, things like that, logistically how it's going to work, I don't know. So I do see, you know, while we're all kind of surviving through the short term, I can see potential issues in the medium to long term in terms of that. Sorry, Tim, you're on mute.
I know Martin's got a question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, can I ask about furloughing? When we looked at the averages, we were seeing that firms were furloughing an average of about 30% of their staff, with a high outlier of 80% in just one firm's case. With regard to that, and of course the point you made on trainees is very, very pertinent at this point in time. A lot of firms saying, the trainees and the reception staff are basically hopeless to us at this point in time, and that does have a knock-on impact, certainly when there's a return to work scenario. But what have you found, not just in your own firm, but around, in terms of firms furloughing percentages of staff? Is my first question, and my second question I'll ask when that one's been answered.
Okay. I suppose in terms of furloughing staff, one of the initiatives that the Irish government came out with is a scheme called the Temporary Wage Subsidy Scheme within Ireland. So they are supporting wages up to, in some circumstances, it's up to 85% of a salary when the salaries are at the lower end. Which just happens to be our administration and kind of more junior training staff. So we've been able to avail of some of the government schemes whereby their salaries are being covered up to 70 or 85%. On some, we are able to keep a couple of them busy, but probably not in the way that we would like to. Where we've seen opportunities is in terms of more, like we have new anti-money laundering legislation come out in Ireland towards the back end of last year, which comes into effect in June of this year. So what we've done is we've looked at a lot of projects that can be done within the office, and we've dished those out to junior staff. So while their work might not be chargeable or recoverable from a fee point of view, at least we're using them. And I think the worst thing we can do is kind of leave them idle, because from a motivation point of view and everything, it's just going to be so demoralizing for them. So we are keeping them busy at the moment. And we have one or two very good seniors that seem to be quite good managers at mentoring remotely. I think it's a skill, and not everyone kind of possesses it, I suppose. So we're trying to make sure that each of the more junior staff get a bit of exposure still on chargeable time, but also can work on separate projects.
Absolutely. And so as a percentage of the staff of the firm, what percentage of the staff or the headcount did you end up furloughing?
I'd say 5%.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Superb. Okay. And the other question I had, if I may, was about the return to work scenarios. I only know 3 firms who are even contemplating return to work scenarios. But we have to bear in mind that certain US states went back to work on Monday and went back to it. So the 3 firms I know about are considering an airline approach, where the airlines have talked about when they recommence flying, the middle seat will remain empty on flights. And they're considering the same thing. These firms are considering the same thing, to have 2/3 of their workforce return in a social distancing situation in the office where possible, with the rest working from home and the balance remaining furloughed, and then bringing them out of furlough and then rotating. So they've got 2/3 of the workforce actively working at any given time. And the 3 firms that I know who are considering that are all considering the exact same approach, but they're looking at as early as July 1st for doing that. In Ireland, I take it that's completely out of the question at this time.
I think it is at the moment, just based on the government advice. I suppose the commentary is that if you are in a position to work remotely, to continue doing so until the end of August. Now, there's an argument that our reception staff can't work from home, so do we bring them back in and at least have someone manning reception in case couriers and things like that are coming in?
Yep.
I suppose we're in a unique situation in terms of our building in Dublin. We're in an old Georgian house, so we're not open plan.
Right.
So it actually would be possible to bring in a certain level of staff and for everyone to have their own room. We could probably bring in, I'd say, 40% of our staff and socially distance. So whether we look down the road to doing that and do 1 week on, 1 week off, and people work from home for 1 week and then we switch. So obviously if someone gets sick, it's maybe taking out 50% of your head count rather than 100%. But I suppose it's working well at the moment because everyone's at home. I think once people start getting back to being in offices and 9 to 5, there's going to be that level of expectation again that everyone's working to a certain schedule, whereas at the moment we know they're not. Because people have kids at home, and you might be logging on at 6 o'clock in the evening, or and working until 10. So at the moment everyone's very flexible, and that seems to work. But I do think, sorry, I have a dog here next to me who's looking for a lot of attention. Hence the reason why I'm like this. So I mean, I think we will have to. I see myself possibly an issue as well in terms of our staff's mental health.
Yes.
And I do think getting people back into some sort of an office environment is good. A lot of our staff might not be from Dublin, and they're either living on their own in apartments in Dublin, or they're living in a house share with strangers, and it's not ideal. So I think the longer we stay out, the more difficult it'll be to return. But definitely, it's going to have to be on a very phased basis.
That's certainly the view I've heard. The feeling I've heard that there is a consensus is the longer the lockdown lasts, the less we will revert to where we were. And therefore we have impacts on commercial landlords there tremendously when people decide they no longer want their office space.
Yeah.
So they then the domino effect of that then starts hitting all kinds of supply chain.
Yeah. And I mean, there's positives to people, personally for me, I'm enjoying not spending 2.5 hours a day commuting. I enjoy it at the moment, and I find I'm much more productive. But at the same time, because we are a training organisation, that side of it has to be remembered, and the training is taking a huge hit, whether we realise it now or not. And it's going to have a really negative impact on it. So so I think I don't think I can see everyone being back in the office 5 days a week, from 9 to 5 anytime in the future. I think this will change the landscape permanently. And maybe it's not such a bad thing. People were running themselves into the ground trying to be all things to all people. So maybe this will give people a bit better of a kind of a work-life balance. And
it's certainly a boon to technology companies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I'm not missing the train stations or the airports either, but I can only imagine what impact this is having on Tim, who's a world explorer. I can only imagine what impact it's having on him. But Kate, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you very much, Kate. Can I ask James, could you give us a few minutes on how you see things progressing?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I mean, there's a lot going on at Blick Rothenberg, I suppose, in relation to this. There's the people side of things and how we get back to work, and then there's the sort of client and business continuity side of things. On the sort of plans to get back to work, I suppose there's a few things that we've been looking at. The first one is I think we've had great success in breaking down the business into different teams. So we have a business continuity team, which is headed by Nilesh, which is a small team of people that makes very quick decisions, I think, in relation to this crisis. And that's been very kind of valuable to us as a business to sort of feel the pulse for what's happening around the business and then make a quick decision, which I think is kind of really important. And then beneath that, we've got the management team and then teams for each of the different business sectors. We've broken those down so that every day we have a daily Skype call with sort of 5 or 6 people, just to make sure that every day we have a touch point with our people. Because I think what we're trying to do is obviously prioritize the well-being of all of our people at Blick Rothenberg, and that's gone well. Everyone has given good feedback about that. It's time consuming and it's not necessarily particularly efficient in my mind, but it works very well given the circumstances. And I think it's been received well by people. Then in terms of getting back to work, I think into the office, we've kind of got two areas. So one is health and well-being of our people. And that's looking at, how do we make the office environment as safe as possible for our teams if and when they can get back. And the UK government is announcing things this weekend. So there's a lot that's kind of not known yet from what government will be issuing. But we are looking at, I suppose, that airplane mode that you mentioned, Martin, around spacing in the office. Mm-hmm. We're looking at, more hand sanitizers and people self-certifying that they're healthy before they come into the office to make sure that, they're not going to make other people unwell. Cleaning, how are we going to clean everything? And are we going to have different teams working at different times, different rotas? How's all that going to work? So we're kind of working through all of that right now. And I suppose in my mind, the default is likely to be, as Kate has explained, which is we'll probably all be as far as possible working from home until we feel that it's safe for people to be back in the office in whatever form that looks like. And then operationally, we've obviously got a lot of challenges around desks and how you lay those out in the office. Phones, do we keep phones because they're obviously a place where germs can collect, and now that we're all using Zoom and Skype, do we need phones anymore? Do we want to get rid of hot desking because again it tends to then encourage spread of germs and go back to a more kind of fixed desk positioning? So all those kind of operational matters are being looked at, and how that will, I suppose, break down into different teams working at different times in the office. And I think from my perspective, the biggest two issues are commuting, because London is such a big hub and you might be safe in the office, but how do we make the commute as safe as possible? And that's a challenge that I think all groups are going to struggle with. And then secondly, if we're encouraging people to be in the office, but not to connect with other people, then do they really need to be in the office at all? That's a real big open question for me. On the business and client side, there's lots going on, and we're doing some of the things that Martin mentioned. So I think for existing clients, we're trying not to sell, we're trying to help them. So we've had many discussions around what we can do to help them. You'll have seen that we've got a COVID business hub on our website, which is like a collection data point of all the interesting things that we think groups need to be aware of. And really one-to-one discussions with all of our clients where possible. And we went through that journey of, looking after our people first, getting the systems up and running, and then kind of now reaching out to our clients more to see if they've got time to have a discussion with us. And it's so sector specific. Obviously, retail clients are really badly impacted. Some software clients are actually doing really quite well at the moment. So I don't think there's any kind of one size fits all approach there. On the new client side, I think we're doing loads of innovative stuff. So we're doing lots of virtual trips to say the US, because we'd normally be flying out to go and meet with companies. So we're now doing that remotely. I'm actually technically on a virtual trip to New York right now. So I've got calls and meetings all afternoon today with US companies. And I've got a virtual drinks in a New York bar this evening, which starts at 10 p.m. UK time. So we're doing some fun things that seem to be working. What I would say is that we're getting mixed responses from companies. Some are a bit fatigued with Zoom and that kind of forum. And I think, we're starting to see that little bit of fatigue coming through. Others are just at a different stage and very willing to talk to us. So I think it just depends. And I think the key is to try all approaches really and work out what works best for your client base, and then mix it up every now and again to just make it, interesting.
Absolutely.
Martin, I think you've got a question.
Yeah, James. Yeah, both a question and a comment, really. You were talking about hot desking and there's sort of the reverting from hot desking, which is a post 2000 concept, to the more traditional. And I see that everywhere. I see everybody talking about the removal of hot desking. And you made a great point about the phones as well. There was only the phones. Are Blix at the moment looking at what I know the three firms that I'm referring to are looking at, and that's the actual installation of screens like we see at the supermarkets now at the checkout desks that protect the checkout person from the customer. The three firms that I'm referring to are now considering the actual installation of those in between desks. Are you looking at that one at all?
I mean, I think it's being looked at. I don't think any decision has been made yet, because like I said, we haven't got the government guidance, and I think that's kind of going to be really critical to this. Nilesh, I know that you're...
Yeah, if I can maybe just help James out, because probably not fair for him to answer the question because he's not part of the BC team that he mentioned earlier. So I think just going back to the whole thing, we've now got a draft paper which we're about to circulate to all of our partners of addressing a phased return to work. We don't have a date in mind, but early July maybe, and agree with the points that Kate was making. That was partly, it's quite counterintuitive. On one hand, we're really concerned about the well-being of all of our people, traveling to the office, getting to the office and being there. On the other hand, I know a lot of our colleagues would love the chance to at least break out of the home routine and the office, even if it's for 2 days, and then go back and hunker back into the bunkers for the next 3 or 4 weeks. But we do need to provide an opportunity for our people, if the government and scientists say it is safe, to actually stay in the office. So the things we've considered in terms of implementing is going to be face masks at home. If we're able to get temperature checking before they go, as James said, to confirm that they don't have a temperature before they leave home and are feeling well as well. We're not going to force anyone to come into the office in the first phase. So it's only going to be people who can walk, run, cycle to the office who really will be in the office. We're looking at a zigzag seating arrangement to start with. Next to you or opposite you, but diagonally with you. I'm going to take away all the phones and just use Zoom or Skype and Teams, which is what we tend to do at this point in time. Putting down one-way walking systems within the office, putting down what supermarkets have done, which is social distancing, not having any cutlery or anything else in the kitchens, clearing all of that out, and people only using personal stuff as well. So coming back to your main point on the screens, yes, that's going to be one of the most difficult ones to consider, because most of the other things, other than things like face masks and sanitizers, what we are working towards really is an eventual phased working from home policy rather than enforced working from home as we have now. So we anticipate that we'll probably going forward have, out of our 600 people, we'll have about 300 working from home at any point in time. And therefore the space we need is going to be considerably less than we would. We were about, actually we got lucky because we were about to sign on the 28,000 square foot space additional on top of what we have.
Wow.
In the new year. The other party were dragging their feet because they were trying to drive a hard bargain, and we sort of walked away from it briefly, intending to come back to renegotiate, and then we went into lockdown, and not surprisingly, they're now chasing us, which we're not going to. But our space requirements have changed significantly like everybody else. So we're using this opportunity to go towards a more phased working from home policy. So we don't anticipate now ever being in a situation where we will have all of our people in the office at any point in time at all.
Excellent. Thank you, Nilesh.
Has anybody got any other points for James or Kate? Does anybody else want to give us a view on what they're doing? I don't know how things are going in the Netherlands, Andre. Are you looking at getting back to work in the office shortly? Just,
Okay.
yeah.
Just from the Flint perspective, we already were used to having less people in our office because our new workspaces is based on 70% of the FTE we have in persons. So we made some reduction on the floor we rent already, and already our communication system, we were anticipating that more and more people were working from home. So it speeded up the process a little because we have not changed all our offices yet into this new type of working, but at least it's functioning very well. But speaking from the personal perspective, a lot of people complain missing the interaction with their colleagues on when they work for the same clients. It's different meeting in the office or meeting by Skype. I think we all agree that. And also having the energy of having the ideas of another person and then developing something creative out of it, you must be in one place better than only by Skype. That the creativity is reduced by not meeting physical. That's at least something we experience. We have had we also have a COVID desk from our firm, and we have a dedicated team, a team of 8 to 10 persons who are 12 hours available every day for our clients with all their questions. And it's all concentrated, and then we link them to the employees that are connected to the client, so that we have analyzed a little bit the questions from our clients, so that the other staff can continue the work they are performing, and they still feel connected to Flint as a trusted advisor. So that's how we deal with it. And hopefully tonight we have a presentation from our Prime Minister, and we all expect that he will announce that the regulations will be a little bit not so tightened, and that we can have more clients going back to their work, having more allowed to have more people in our office again. That's what we are expecting. That's a short overview from the Netherlands. We have some clients in greenhouses, for example. Their turnover has also reduced by 100% or 90%, and it's really a disaster going on there on those clients. And we help them out, and our merger and acquisition clients department is also having some serious trouble in finding enough work for their staff, but we can solve that within the firm. It's not the biggest department, but that's one that's also that hit very hard because no merger and acquisitions take place at the moment. Everything is on hold.
Thank you very much. Okay, I know you're all busy. Are there any final questions? Anything else anybody would like to say or to comment on what we've had today? Well, thank you very much. If I could thank Martin from the Upward Spiral Partnership for giving us that sort of overview at the very beginning of where we are. And if I could thank Kate, James and Andre for their comments. As I say, I will be hopefully sending this recording out in the next couple of days, if I can manage the technology. And just as firms have said, as members have said, with websites and specific COVID details on those, the BKR website in the members area of the forum has got a specific COVID-19 area, and there's quite a lot of stuff in news, most of it linking into the members area. So please, if you haven't done so already, please have a look at that and see what others, not just in the EMEA region, but around the world, have been doing. And both the other two regions, like ourselves, are running meetings like this as well, which you're more than welcome to attend. I know Daniel and I were at an Asia Pac meeting a couple of weeks ago. So we are doing our best. If there's something else you think we should be doing or can help with, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. On that note, thank you very much for attending this. I wish you all the best. I hope you, your families and your staff all stay safe. And I look forward to, and unfortunately I don't think it'll be the near future, but I do look forward to seeing you all in person in the not too distant future. So please stay safe. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Nearly there. Hi, Martin. Thanks for that.
No problem at all, Tim. Probably a good idea to stop recording at this point.
Yeah, just going on to that.